All right, everybody, welcome on back. A-Rye. Actually, no, this is just some random avatar that I think is with the Spring Bloom free avatars. I don't know. I think it's cool. The Bushmen. Anyways, no. So last episode, we were talking about why people kill people, and that's it. Or why people even hurt people, directly, indirectly, intentionally, or unintentionally. If you knew that you accidentally hurt somebody, well, within reason too, you would try to do something to not do that in the future. That's just human nature. Like, once you realize that you've wronged somebody, it's like, ooh, better take a note of that. I don't want to do that again. Or that was an unpleasant feeling. And we have that sympathy that we just experience well, especially when we're called out. Now, we still experience it a little bit if we're not called out and we know about it. I mean, if we don't know about it, then it's, blissful ignorance. Like, oh, I just didn't know. But if you know about it and then you still, and again, depending on the severity or the degree of what it is, yeah. And I feel like some people just get blind to that. Like they get blind to their conscience, the little voice in their head. Or they have to. They have to make hard decisions or business decisions. And, that's kind of the dark side to a lot of the stuff that we have in this country is like we have had a lot of cool stuff and, a great life, except at the cost of a lot of our citizens, specifically the poorer people, or the people that make a mistake, and that's also usually the poorer people because, I mean, or same with small town people. Even if you don't, how do I phrase that? You're more likely to commit a crime or to use substances if you don't have a lot of the same stuff that other people are, because those people are less likely to. In certain neighborhoods, and this actually feeds a lot of accidental racism too, is because the majority of good neighborhoods tend to be white, or at least they used to. I feel like that's changing, thankfully. But I mean, that leads to some accidental judgment, this accidental dehumanization. Now, are you a human or are you a bad human? Are you a criminal or are you, and even just these words, even though granted, that's what, in the legal sense, you have to, or I guess they're a little more cautious about it. Like, offender is what they call the people in prison. I have a lot of friends and family that worked for the prison up in Buena Vista, and like, when we talk about inmates or offenders, that's what they are. Um, you're an offender for life. If you make a mistake, and same with even drunk driving. And so that's why I hate that it has to go back to that. But drinking is totally legal. You can go to a bar, I've done it, and you can drink alcohol in public. And then you can choose to drive a car after drinking in public. Well, you're not in public. In fact, Ron White does this very funny comedy bit where he's like, I was drinking in a bar. They threw me into public. You want to arrest somebody, go arrest them. But I mean, that also comes down to you can't handle your liquor, you're making poor decisions, and now you're making a fool of yourself, and you're inconveniencing the law enforcement officers that have to come here because of you, because you're making somebody nervous or threatening or what have you. And now the law enforcement officers have to decide what to do with you. Leave you alone? I mean, back in Buena Vista, they'll actually just give you a ride home. I don't know if they do anymore, but like, if you were being drunk in public and like, instead of driving, and this was also back before Uber, they might have a couple Ubers up there now, so that would be cool. But back in my day, and I wasn't even drinking in bars in Buena Vista, I think I've been in one of the bars. No, I've been in each of the bars at least once. Sorry, but no, my point being is times have changed. But back then, the cops would take sympathy on you and be like, "Oof, we'll give you a ride," especially if you were underage. And if they had to admit that they were there, like, they might just not report it and be like, all right, I'm going to take you home, but I'm going to tell your parents. If you're under 18 and you're a juvenile, like, a lot of times you don't even get in that much trouble because you're a kid. You're not expected to know better by that time. Now, why you have access to alcohol, that's another matter, but um, you do. Like, people aren't going to have a gun safe for their alcohol, which, I don't know. I do it pretty good. My kids are completely safe from alcohol because there's no alcohol ever in this house. And I don't plan on there ever being alcohol because even if I have guests, I don't have guests. See, if I want to talk to somebody, I can meet them in a public place. I could go to their place. And yeah. And that's something I used to do. I used to entertain people a lot, especially with that one girlfriend. I lived with her, and we would have friends over, and it was kind of a thing. Like we had to like make sure everything was cleaned up and presentable, and like stress about all this, and half the time they could have come, we could have had a dead body in the middle of the floor, and they'd be like, So, how are things up here? Like, like, oh, maybe not a dead body. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but we could have some pretty serious, gnarly stuff, or like a load of laundry that's clean but just not folded, rumpled up on the couch. Totally fine. But in fact, I've had just random strangers just passed out, and like, not strangers to me, but like for other people, like, in college, it gets crazy, especially alcohol. So, and yeah, and Fort Collins was the number one city in the country for DUIs for like several years in a row, I want to say, but it was taught in a party class. I could probably look it up here. And if it turns out that that's not true, then I guess I'm gonna have a talk with my friend who was in the party class, because I wasn't in the party class, but I've repeated it. In fact, let's see. Should we even look that up real quick? What is that? I don't know. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Yep, politics. I was looking up the articles of impeachment for Donald Trump because I read somewhere that he was proven to have done the things that they were accusing him of doing, but and it did. It came down to a vote. The Senate voted, two people said no. And if those two people would have said yes, or even just one of them said yes, then it would have been a tie. And the House passed it. The House impeached him both times. The Senate didn't impeach him the first time by 2 votes, and I think that was for the phone call where Trump basically he blackmailed Zelensky for U.S. aid to give him dirt on Biden to interfere with an election, a foreign leader to help interfere in our elections. He invited this guy, like demanded it, to interfere with an election. So right there, that's pretty messed up. I mean, okay, do with that what you will. 48 or no, 48 Republicans still voted yes, because I think it was pretty split down the middle. There was just a Republican majority, but only by a couple or something. So a lot of Republicans said, yeah, he did it. Let's impeach him, or whatever. Actually, maybe no. Maybe I'm getting that wrong. Maybe all Republicans voted on party lines, and I could be completely. I guess I would have to look at the thing. But anyways, Fort Collins, number one for DUI. And just looking up something like that, Google says the DUI rate in Fort Collins is even worse than in Ventura, with 4.693% of drivers saddled with a DUI. The DUI rate for this northern Colorado city of over 150,000 is almost 5 times the state average. There you go. The most drunk driving in. Oh, here we go. Dangerousroads.org. The 10 American cities with the most drunk driving incidents. What state is number one for DUI? Montana. Okay. And this is currently as of 2023. Um, what is the number for DUI in Colorado? Okay, no. Oh, and then alleged false DUI arrests. So that's the other thing too. A DUI doesn't mean you're just completely blackout drunk. In fact, I did tips training. Tips training is what you have to do if you're going to be working at places that serve alcohol. And part of my first job out of college, we did functions where there was alcohol that was served, and so we had to have training. Also, I mean, it went both ways. Like training on when to say, okay, I think you've had enough, because we would be providing alcohol, and then also training to say, okay, I've had enough when we'd be consuming alcohol. And yeah. And that led to problems. I don't like alcohol. I mean, and I don't know a single person that doesn't have a problem with alcohol. Like, it's the nature of the substance. I mean, you can enjoy it responsibly, that's fine. But nobody is safe from the dangers of alcohol. I mean, all it takes is taking one shot too many. If you're with the right people and they're like wanting to celebrate and like, come on, let's take an extra shot. And if you really don't think like, oh no, I don't want to, but then you do, that could mean a DUI. Like, and actually, I have a friend who got a DUI here in Fort Collins that he was just barely over the limit, and he told the officer, he was like, I wanted to take this girl home and let her sleep on the couch, get her some water, and like he was one of his friends that, he was trying to look out for, and it was too. It wasn't him just trying to score. Like I don't. In fact, I think it might have even been his like friend's girlfriend or something like that. But either way, I had a lot of friends that would do that. I mean, most people would like, let's take her home so somebody doesn't take advantage of her or drug her roofier, because apparently that's a thing in Fort Collins. A little backstory about that: I got into a physical altercation with somebody who was doing that. Beat the crap out of him. Sorry, crud. Sorry, trying not to swear. He says otherwise, but. I don't know, he had bike tire marks on his back because I was like slamming him against the bike rack. Like, oh, good times, good times. But anyways, a proper gentleman will take care of a lady or another gentleman if you notice that, like, hey, he's not doing so good. Maybe we should get him home and get some water in him. Yeah, you betcha. So it wasn't just like a chivalry thing. It was more like, anyways, my point being, he got a DUI. He got pulled over there watching everybody that was leaving the bar. He felt like he was just fine. Like he only had 2 beers. And I think it was those high volume or those high alcohol content beers like New Belgium and stuff, which is a brewery here in Fort Collins. And we have Odell's in New Belgium, and we are like one of the capitals for craft breweries and stuff. And like we have tons of that stuff going on. And it's sometimes that stuff, especially like Tripel, I think is like 9% alcohol or something. So he had 2 beers, um, and the office, and he was like, or how did that go? I think the officer said something to the tune of, "Well, you should have waited an hour." That was it. That was a $10,000 joke because he got a DUI. And then he got expensive insurance. And this guy's not rich. I mean, he's a computer scientist and he has a good job now, but geez, that really screwed up his life for a long time. And, and even like, I remember I had a buddy that worked at HP, and when he got a DUI, he almost got fired for it. Like, luckily, he got it like sealed. Like so like places can fire you. And I know another guy that worked for Wolf Robotics that was in work release, and he was all hush hush about it, like can't let my work find out, like, because this is people's livelihoods. Like you want to mess with somebody over a quota, like, yep, I got him, or he was driving, stamp stamp no erases, he was just over the limit. Like that's where the judgment comes in. And that's why a lot of officers get criticism is because, well, yes, technically according to the playbook, but all officers are told and encouraged to use their best judgment. Like if it's on a borderline, like unless you're just really out to like bust somebody that day, like, oh, but then that's a slippery slope too. You can't just let things slide. And so but I mean, I don't know. Like your hands are tied in some situations, and unfortunately, in a city, I feel like it's harder for cops to, get away with just being like, okay, okay, whatever, get her home, Whereas if people already see that you're there, and if people were like, wait, what was his blood alcohol, or what was he blowing? Oh, well, technically, and then people could get sued, like the department could get sued. And see, that's where things like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, while good-natured and good intentions, actually end up causing a lot more harm than good. Because, they're making it harder for other people out there that might have just had 2 beers with a friend and, oh, hey, she needs some water, let's get her home. Or I guess they could have drank water there, but she was slurring her words, she was hammered, like, it needed to be fixed, like she needed help. And so that is impeding on a good citizen trying to be a good citizen. Like, we're all good citizens, by the way. You don't need to have your gold star and your lapel on your pin. Like, I used to think so, and then I got certified as a white hat cybersecurity professional. So I can say that I am a good person. So I guess right there, you kind of do need that. Or a Boy Scout. I was a Cub Scout up until I became a Boy Scout, and then I was like, I think I'm good. Then I went off and did my own thing. Same with religion. I like studied the Bible a lot. I was confirmed in the church, and then once I got it, I was like, okay, you know what? I think I'm good. I want my Sunday back. And so I took my Sunday back, and now I do this stuff. Oh, which is so much. I mean, no offense to people that go to church. That's fine. If you find peace in it, if you find value in it, then go for it. That's cool. So, I don't. I mean, I like my Sundays, especially because we had to drive an hour just to go to church for an hour, so it costs 2 hours out of our day, and in the middle of the day too. Which, yes, it's the most convenient for everybody, but at the same time, it's like, okay, you can do some stuff before and you can do some stuff after, but you got to work around it. And so, and at the end of the day, like, if you think you're in trouble or you need some help, just open up the Bible or the Quran, because the Quran is almost the same thing. I'm sorry, like, I was reading some of it and I was talking with a bunch of my Islamic friends, and the stuff that they were saying is like, oh yeah, they got a devil, they got, good versus bad, like, they don't think that substance use is all that good. I can't remember if it's like, I think it's forbidden, all substance use. But, and then with religion, I looked up what the current Pope said back in 2013, that all drug use is bad. He condemns all drug use. Well, okay, well, is cannabis a drug? I mean, is caffeine a drug? Let me find out that that Pope drinks coffee. We're gonna have some words, like, no, I'm just kidding. But seriously, like, where do you draw the line? What is it? A mind altering? Caffeine? It's a stimulant. Like, it's a drug. Is it a narcotic? No. So and maybe that's why that drug, like all drugs. And then what about CBD? What if people don't actually like use cannabis, but maybe just CBD, which is the lesser form? It's a different chemical altogether. It's mood altering. I mean, it relaxes you. Actually, I don't know. I don't think I've ever used CBD, like just CBD. I've used a lot of cannabis in my life, but a lot. I used to love like Adam Sandler back in high school and stuff. Like so underage too. Now, if my kids are watching this, you're not allowed to until you're 21. After that, I don't give a hoot. You go for it. But if I catch you, then we're just going to talk about it and we're going to figure it out. Because if you're under 18, you can't even get tried as an adult. So if you were to get caught by a cop with cannabis, like, again, not saying, not encouraging it, but just know, like, those are the problems you could have. Those are the repercussions. And if I find out, I'd probably take away their video games for a day. Like, I'd be like, no, because you need to learn patience. You need to learn until there's a time and place for everything, and it's called college. And now that, out of sight, out of mind, not my problem. Now, granted, if a cop finds him, then the cop's going to do what the cop's going to do. It depends on the circumstance, and I like to think that a lot of them would do that here in Fort Collins. Like, in fact, I know. Sorry, I have a close friend that had exactly that happen. He had a marijuana pipe on the. See, and then I switched to marijuana once it's a criminal thing, but no, he had a cannabis utensil on the table, and the cop was already arresting him for something else. And the guy's like, "You ain't got nothing to catch me on." He's like, "What about that?" And this was back when it was illegal too. But he was just kind of joking. He didn't actually charge him for it or bring it up. And after that, he was just the cop just took him to jail and it was done. So, but yeah, seriously, and that's how it used to be. Like stamp, stamp, no erase. He's like very childish law following or rule following, where it's like, no, no wiggle room in this. Granted, I'm also like I said, I'm watching Better Call Saul right now, and there's a lot of wiggle room in that whole show. That is the show. It could be called Wiggle Room, but it wouldn't be as serious. Better Call Saul is catchy, you know. Social engineer, a negative social engineer. That's what we would call a black hat. And that is a bunch of cybercrime, the stuff that goes on in that show. Now, not all of it, but social manipulation, they do use technology and make it cybercrime with the phones. The one episode where they just have like 50 or so phones on the table, and they're the old flip phones. Sorry, hold on, my mouth's getting dry. But he's got like 50 phones and they're calling in just to kind of push a lie and reinforce a lie with a judge, or no, it wasn't a judge in that episode, it was the DA. But the DA kept getting all these people, was calling all these numbers and like, oh, whoa, okay. And she was wrong. And that influenced a legal case to the point where, and again, trying not to do too many spoilers, go watch the show. It's just one episode, a smaller thing, but one of his like many deeds that he does that just makes him, Saul Good, man. Saul Goodman. So, in fact, you find that out in like the first couple episodes of the first season. But just understanding lawyers and law. But then you see people that are following the law, they seem just as heartless and cruel as the criminals. Like, and that's what I love about Better Call Saul because it just paints lawyers in such a light. Now, not all lawyers, but like especially Chuck. I have people in my family that sound like Chuck when they talk like all like fancy, and then I kind of feel like, oh, well, what did they do with that? And in part of it, giving Jimmy, so his name is Jimmy McGill or James McGill, but he calls himself Better Call Saul. Um, and then later on he jokes about it. It's great for my Jewish clientele because it makes him sound Jewish. But, anyways, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, Jimmy's described as a chimp with a machine gun, a criminal with a law degree. Like you're gonna be so black hat, and he does. He does a lot of black hat things. But I would argue he's kind of gray hat because he does some really righteous things too. So, and I know a lot of cybersecurity professionals that like to identify as gray hat. Like they like to be called gray hat. They identify themselves as gray hat. And see, we're not even talking about gender, but just identity is huge. So, now me, I'm a white hat, meaning I believe in the purity of the ultimate law. Now, what is that? Now, that sounds scary when you describe it like that. Like it still has to be in accordance with man's law, human's law, them and or human law, man's law, not human, not women. Sorry, still trying to make that comfortable saying. Um, oh, let's go to sleep and let's get some trading going. But I believe that the laws should be just such that we're not waging war on our own citizens. I feel like that's pretty fair. If we're going to be in the land of the free, going to be the freest country in the world, and if we're going to claim that, we got to stop waging literal war with our citizens. The war on drugs is a violent and deadly war between law enforcement and citizens. And a lot of people don't even know they're participants in the war. They're just like, oh, I guess I am now, and then they could get shot, killed. Death by cop is a very serious thing. And that's why I criticize like people that get mad at the Saudi prince for killing that journalist, even if he didn't, or order it or whatever. Like, it's one guy. I mean, do you know how many people die in police custody in this country? Like thousands, hundreds of thousands. Like, and it's just like it's a war. It's literally a war on American citizens. But people just because it's drugs, like, well, they kind of deserve it. Wait a minute, they the dehumanization of people. Oh, now it's okay that they die. Oh, like that doesn't freak people out. Mothers against drunk driving. How many is there a mothers against police death or police murder, like, or death by cop? There should be. I think that's anybody who's ever had a family member that's had that happen. Or, I mean, and then yeah, death by gangs too. One of my friends, her brother got killed in gang fights or in a gang shootout down in Denver. And it happens. I mean, we got a lot of that here. A lot of Crips and Bloods. We also got like GKI, we got Peckerwoods, we got North Side, South Side, MS-13s, which is kind of basically South Side, but then like, I don't know, a flavor of it. We got a lot of gang stuff here. And I have another friend who's on the gang unit, like, you know, cop that busts people in gangs. And again, people in gangs. Okay, so now that you're in a gang, or if you're affiliated with a gang, then you're less than human, easier to target. And whether it's fair or not, yeah. And most of the time, they would be, innocently going to talk to them first. If they're committing a crime, then they got to take you into custody and take you in. The last thing they want to do is fight. Like, nobody likes to fight. Well, there is some truth behind Fight Club, that whole movie. Like, there is a kind of adrenaline rush, but you could get the same from. Well, anyways, the point is, people in positions of power should not be wanting a fight. I mean, it might still happen, and that's why we got to have a room for error, a margin, if you will, on everything. But that goes for everyone too, and it feels like it's just for the elite. Like, if you have enough money, same with just having enough money or resources to be aware of like the classes that you need to take, or a good lawyer that can do that. And like, we're trying to change that. There's a lot more pro bono stuff going on. And that's another thing we should have, is we should have like, if you want to get into law, you have to do a certain level of pro bono, just like with tech. Like, I guess you don't have to, but it definitely helps you get the good job if you do some, like, I don't know, some tutorials on YouTube or some Twitch streaming about teaching coding. I feel like that actually really helped me get my current job, was because not only could I explain that I know how to do my stuff, I was teaching it to other people online with proof that, yeah, if you want to learn computer science, go check out my channel. Like, there's a lot of other nonsense on there, like these games and stuff, but in fact, my first video was Borderlands 3, and I talked about making it into an NFT, which I might still do, like sell the rights to it to somebody. And then, just like Wu-Tang, that one guy, which turned out like, and he had so much of a slate to clean, which it's still not clean. He robbed people blind and like, you know, made a ton of money off of people, and he used that money to buy Wu-Tang exclusively. And yeah, what was his name, Martin Scarelli or something, but like it was proven that he or his company like jacked up the price of, I forget what drug it was. Maybe it was like for diabetes, like, and I have a friend that has diabetes and has to get insulin, and that's a really big thing when, come election time, who's going to look out for his best interest and keep those prices low? Go Bernie. I love Bernie Sanders. Crazy guy, like, crazy good. Like, I mean, his mental health is perfectly fine, but, well, actually I say that, but maybe not, because he is a little stressed out and he could use some stress relief. But, which I think he does okay. Sorry, just like analyzing a lot of even what I just said there. if taken out of context, it could sound pretty messed up. Like Bernie needs to chill. He needs to chill out, man. Like no, I mean it wouldn't hurt, but like no. Maybe we could help him chill out by removing some of the friction that he's feeling every day, that he's trying to fight for us for. Now I sound like a political ad, but it's true. I mean, he's raising up a stink about this, and like same with the Sierra Club, which I did. I missed the meeting this week. I got too much going on. That's one of my days with the kids. Like, I just can't do it. I mean, I'm gonna do other things to help the cause, like the indoor air pollution, furnace, gas. Like, and even saying that, I have friends that work in the oil fields, and they make great money from natural gas and oil. Like, that's their livelihood. But we'll fix it. We'll give other livelihoods. Like, we'll slowly move away from gas, maybe even all the way. But like, and it's not good. Same with mining stuff out of the earth. Like, and people that have any relatives that talk about their mining days and stuff, they'll tell you mines are pretty bad for the environment. They pollute. Like the runoff and stuff is bad for everything downstream. Like, and then the actual like digging cavities into, like, think about your tooth. And cavities like rotting away. Like that's what we're doing to the mountains. The mountain called Monkey was on fire. That's a Gorillaz thing. So go look at Gorillaz. I think it's the Clint Eastwood, or that might be a song. Might be Demon Days. Anyways, look it up. It's like a talking one where they just tell a story, and it's like starts out like like it's really funky. Like, oh, and now he's like a fisherman. Yeah. But anyways, Gorillaz. There's a lot of profound stuff in there, but it's just a different perspective, a different way of thinking about things. But the mountain was a volcano, and it erupted and killed a lot of people. At least what I think it was. But the message was like, they had dug out these caves in the mountain and destabilized it, which really happens. Like volcanoes can erupt if other factors like mining and stuff. Now I'm not saying if you go mining in a mountain you're gonna make it blow up, like, but that could happen. And then and human interaction on the Earth is part of the reason for a lot of that stuff. Climate change, especially. Like, human activity is directly responsible for the accelerated climate change. See, there's the only distinction you really need to make when you're having a discussion with someone that doesn't think climate change is all that big of a deal or even real. Which is a lot of. I used to tag climate scam in some of my climate change posts just because there was a bot that would repost it and people would follow that type of hashtag, and then they would start seeing that, and then they'd like it at first, and then they'd look at it and be like, oh wait, oh no, I don't agree with this at all. What? It's abusing tags, but is it bad to gain? I mean, Elon did exactly that, and I applaud him for it. It wasn't abusing tags. He purposely meshed the left with the right. He forced people that were usually generally left leaning to start seeing a bunch of right leaning stuff. And it was awesome. Those algorithms really helped open up a lot of dialogue. I mean, it was uncomfortable. It was sketchy. Like, there was a lot of ugly, prickly conversations. I had some pretty bad arguments with some people, petty name calling, very offensive things. Like, I don't even want to say it on here. I'd probably get dinged. Like, um, but you get my idea. Like, or you get pick up what I'm putting down. What's all this? Got about a couple minutes, so. But that's it. The whole reason why anybody kills anybody is because they think of them as less than human. Whether intentional or unintentional, with good intentions, the pathway to hell is paved with good intention. And hell, if we're going to talk about it in that sense, it's not some real place, a fiery cave, dungeon, or whatever you go and the devil pokes you in the bum. Like, no. It's a state of mind. You feel that guilt. You put yourself in discomfort and in pain in this world. That's what my interpretation of that is. Like, see, look, there we go. We interpreted a Gorillaz lyric, and then we interpreted all of Christianity. Well, no, I mean, I think Islam has a hell. Like, you get 72 versions if you die in holy jihad, which, even thinking about that, like, imagine, does it go both ways? If a woman kills herself or dies in jihad, does she get 72 virgin men? What if she wants women? Or what if a guy wants 72 dudes? I think being gay is like a punishable by death in certain areas of the Middle East, but not all. You can at least get your arm cut off. You can get that happen for like being a drug dealer as recent as, like, I want to say like 5, 10 years ago. It might be longer than that because I mean we did just have the first woman concert. So they're starting to become more liberal, I guess is my point with all that, and about time too. But again, that's communication. Like, they were Anybody like Sharia law and Islamic heavy countries were for the most part sealed off. But I can tell you, a lot of those countries are now very open. Like Saudi Arabia just opened their borders for tourism, and I plan on going. Now it's 140 bucks for the visa, so it's a little pricey. So I'm not gonna go just yet, but I will go one of these days. I mean, the next time I find myself in that side of the world, for business. So I say that I sound like a Scarface. For business, I'm gonna go over there and like. Anyways, ta ta for now. I will see you in the next one.